In the last several weeks, I've been practicing for a studio recording of my art songs. While frequently tuneful, my music is not what people might describe as easy. The two pieces I'm singing feel great in my voice, but they offer some technical challenges that, let's just say, I haven't wrestled with in a while. There have been several moments when I've had to kind of sit myself down and say, David, what would you say to your students in this situation? You are not above the work. And so I reluctantly dive into a messa di voce exercise or whatever is needed in that particular moment. And it reminds me of the challenges I place before my students. I've said this many times, if not here on the podcast, then in the book and in other spaces. To teach means committing to a lifetime of learning. Yes, this can seem like a fairly trite aphorism, but embodying such a practice is much easier said than done. Hello, my name is David Sisco. My pronouns are he, him, and welcome to my little podcast that could, Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. You are very, very welcome here. This podcast is an extension of my book of the same title, which was released by Routledge Press this past summer and is now available on Amazon, routledge.com, and anywhere you buy your fine books. So today we're going to discuss what it means to be a teaching artist. My very special guest is my dear colleague, Anthony Turner, who is part of the voice faculty at Wagner College on Staten Island, which is where I had the pleasure of getting to know him. More on Anthony in just a moment. But first, let's discuss what is a teaching artist. Well, I consulted with the Oracle, meaning the internet, and this is what popped up. According to Berklee School of Music, Career Community's website, teaching artists, quote, are practicing professional artists who have dual careers as educators. They come from every artistic field, music, dance, theater, visual arts, writing, and work in many settings, from schools and museums to hospitals and correctional facilities, unquote. Also called artist educators, they provide a tangible link between the creative process and arts-based learning. Another resource expressed that teaching artists, one, demonstrate a depth of knowledge in their art form, are engaged in sustained creative exploration, teach in, through, and about the arts, and work in a variety of environments serving the needs of local communities. In his book, Making Change, the author Eric Booth argues that being a teaching artist, quote, is not a job title. It's a field, it's a movement, and it's a catalyst for social impact through the arts, unquote. So how does one become a teaching artist? Well, there can be lots of different ways because there are so many different ways to be a teaching artist. I would suggest, however, that there are some key elements that seem to be present universally. One, a hunger to be informed about past and current performance practice, because traditions evolve and we have to be able to speak to those changes. Two, what I would call boots on the ground commitment to the creative and performing arts, and a willingness to share those experiences with the next generation of artists. And three, relatedly, an abiding curiosity which informs how we get to know each student, their essence as a performer, and how they wish to intersect with the industry. That's at least what comes to mind when I think about the prerequisites for being a teaching artist, but I'd love to get another opinion. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to my special guest, baritone Anthony Turner. Anthony has performed with Jesse Norman in the PBS special Great Performances series Aida's Brothers and Sisters, Black Voices in Opera, Kathleen Battle in Underground Railroad, A Spiritual Journey, Laurie Anderson in Songs and Stories from Moby Dick, and as a soloist with Dance Theater of Harlem, the Omaha, Cincinnati, and Phoenix Symphonies. He has also performed with conductors Jesus Lopez Cobos, David Stern, Leslie Dunner, and Ted Hearn. Operatic and musical theater roles include Tony Esposito in The Most Happy Fella, Clarence Thomas in Clarence and Anita, Harry Easter in Street Scene, Alfio in Cavaliera Rusticana, Dappertutto in Les Contes d'Elfman, and Guglielmo in Così fan tutte. He has sung with the Cincinnati and Cleveland Opera Companies, Opera and Ebony, and American Opera Projects. Anthony has also appeared at Piccolo Spoleto Festival, Opera Theater di Lucca, Next Wave Festival, Barbican Music Festival, and the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Currently, Anthony serves as adjunct professor of voice at Wagner College. Anthony, it makes my heart so happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Um, it's great to be with you. I miss you at Wagner College, but I talk about you all the time and I keep trying to send people to you because, if nothing else, your compositions. I loved when the students sang those in my
Thank
studio.
you.
I think they're fabulous songs, and I know you're a fabulous coach, so I'm trying to filter students to you.
You're very kind, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. Well, and since we're in a mutual admiration society, let me just start by saying, when I think about the term teaching artist, I
Mhm.
think of you. You, to me, are the embodiment of what it means to be a teaching artist. And so I was wondering if you had a definition of that term yourself, um, and maybe how your career has necessarily led you to becoming a teaching artist.
Mhm. Becoming a teacher was by accident. Uh, at NYU and at Wagner, NYU, I had a student who was teaching at NYU in this new program there. And so he said, "Well, I think the school should know about you." And he told the powers that be. I had a 20-minute interview, and I was performing in Oregon that summer. And then I got a call that we'd like to have you. It was the program New Studio on Broadway, to be exact.
Oh,
And
cool.
I joined it in its second year at that time. And so that's how I got there. But being at Wagner, now that I'm there exclusively, uh, Richard Guarashi heard me in a concert version of Porgy and Bess. It was a combination of Wagner College and CSI with orchestra. So I didn't know who this man was. He came up and we started talking. He liked my performance, and he asked me where I lived. And I live right by Snug Harbor, which I can walk from here to the school, which is about 50 minutes. And he said, "I want you at the school," so that's why I'm there. Teaching never really, David, entered my mind
Hmm.
uh, in a way. Because I'd had, a student here or somebody ask me, "Well, how do you do this? How do you do that?" But it never really entered my mind. But now that it has, it's the best thing that's happened to me. All of my teachers said that I should teach. And over the years, I wondered why they told me that. Well, that's because I have patience
Hmm.
and to deal with an individual from their starting point. Um, so when you talk about my definition of a teaching artist, it has meant to me that I have an understanding that I learn far more than I could teach. And the students keep me current. I hear about AI. I don't know a lot about it, except I know it can recreate my voice, singing and otherwise, as long as it doesn't create me walking into the studio. But I know that there are good things about it, so I'm slowly learning. Um, and I'm learning with them because it has shaped how they approach, I think, education and most definitely how to think about singing. But teaching artist, it means that I also have to look for ways to perform myself. I told a student yesterday that there is no way that I could tell him to do something and me not do it myself.
Hmm.
I talk about practicing like I talk to them that they should practice. So, and we're always evolving. I say, as I teach, I learn. As I learn, I teach. We are evolving. constantly. Maybe I have a little more weight now than I did 20 years ago. Maybe my voice has deepened. Maybe there are songs that I sing now that I couldn't sing then, songs that I sang then. It's time to put them away and let somebody else do them. There's too much music, and I'm never going to sing everything I want anyway in this lifetime.
Mm.
But it's teaching artist is the ability to know that you are going to learn much more than you can teach.
Yeah, I love that definition, and I really um, it's one of the it doesn't surprise me, but it makes me so happy to hear you say that. I just this idea that we are co-learners with our
Mm,
students, and our students continue to teach us and reveal to us who they are, and which helps us to teach them. Right?
mhm, mhm.
It's such a symbiotic, uh, ideally, such a symbiotic relationship.
Well, and it's all about connection. Um, we don't own our voices. They're on loan to us. And at some point, I'm going to have to give this back. And while I am here, I am charged to do the best that I can with it and to try to uplift someone in the audience or someone in the voice studio or just someone walking on a college campus. Um, how you present yourself, how you want to hear them, how you want to breathe with them. Um, it, it's it's a lot deeper for me, and so the teaching has to do with me looking to help these young people and myself discover the deeper side of this thing called humanity.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you've started to talk about this already a little bit, but you talk to your students about being a performer, right?
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
I'm wondering, what is your perception of how they receive your insights as it relates to their work?
Well, I will tell you this. I have had good fortune. I've only been doing this 13 years, which I don't consider that a long time. However, I have a chakra chart in my studio. I do talk about from the holistic standpoint because I
Hmm.
don't know how we can do our art and not believe in something greater than ourselves. What I have found, David, is that so many people don't necessarily think about it or take it for granted. So when I say the first thing, at least to the new people that come to me, do you know that you were created to receive love?
Mm,
The idea that we are trained to think about what is wrong with us as opposed to looking at what might be good about us. And I find that that can be a common thread throughout my years of teaching
yes.
because it makes the person understand on some level that yes, singing is not my life. My singing enhances the other parts of my life. And I believe that we should have other interests and that sometimes we should take breaks from our art so that we can experience other parts of living and
Hmm.
we bring that to the experience when we go on stage.
I perceive, I think that that's well said, but I perceive that um, in my practice, um, that of teaching, that students, while they may hear that,
Mhm,
the embodiment of that is very tricky to them because I
mhm, mhm,
perceive, especially, we're both working with musical theater, folks, and so I perceive that a lot of my students are already hearing tick, 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 tick. They just feel like there's a very minimal amount of time. I got to
mhm,
really like. I got to make this happen. I got to, have an agent by the time I leave college. I got to like be on Broadway by the time I'm 25. I got to like, I'm right. Like there's this pressure,
Mhm.
right? And what you're talking about is seems antithetical to that. And so I'm
Yes.
wondering, how do you kind of talk about that with your students, get them to understand um, that actually taking time away, that actually slowing down, that knowing that they are, that their art is a part of who they are. How do you let them remind them that that is actually part of the process? It's not antithetical to it.
Yeah, I look, well, first of all, I've talked with a colleague prior and we've called ourselves dinosaurs because the way well, I have one foot in the tar pit and the other one on land. So, it's like,
So
but
funny.
what I think help, first of all, I start with breath. Second of all, I look to relate the body being the instrument because oftentimes as singers, we tend to think that our voice is somewhere out here, wherever out here is. So when I ask all of my tap dancers, did you take ballet? And they tell me yes. And when I ask them why, well, it's the foundation. And I said, well, do you stand at the ballet bar and do you have posture and do you think about breath? Yes. Well, you want to live when you dance, thinking about posture and breath when you sing. Also, you want to live when you sing. So sometimes it just, what it takes certain aspects and breaking it down into what I call mama sense.
Say more about that.
Well, mama sense means common sense. Just to think it through just a little bit. See, you can't AI can't help you with this. You can't find an app on the phone. You have to sit. But I work people so much with breath and feeling what I call life in their bodies, and they get it. But
Mhm.
that's at one time I have to explain how scary that can be because you start to touch sinews and bones and ideas come to you and your heart beats a little differently. That can be scary because that creates vulnerability. And
Sure.
when we're on stage, we need to embrace our vulnerability. The audience doesn't know how we get to a thing. But starting out, it always like, oh, they're gonna know that, I hit somebody and that's how I know how to hit somebody on stage kind of thing. No, it's I have them look in the mirror um because all they have is them. Everybody else is taken.
Mm.
So if you can't look at yourself, and I find that to be very difficult for many people, I have ears that go out like this. Sometimes you have a thin nose, you have a broad nose. We have to start right at the basic and then equate their sound with their physical structure and why that is so uniquely them and to try to find that. The difficulty with that idea sometimes is that they hear certain sounds on Broadway and want to imitate that. Well,
Sure.
not all voices are made equal. So you take Alfie Boe, singing a certain thing, or Ramon Karamlu, or Carolee Carmello, or Kelly. Who am I trying to think of?
O'Hara?
Kelly O'Hara, or those kinds of people. I'm constantly reminding them, you're how old, and how old are they? And you have to look at it as a building process. If you can look at it as a building process and a steady process, and not that you can get this with an app, then you'll be okay, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
then
that
you,
really speaks to it, right? Doesn't it?
yeah,
It's that there's, because of this,
mhm, absolutely.
that there is we have said this many times on the podcast this season, but the idea that we live now in a product-based society,
Mhm,
and the work that we do as artists is process-based,
mhm.
and I think that can be a shock to the system, for students.
Well, they understand it from dance and acting. And you
Hmm.
know, David, what's so interesting about a lot of us as singers, not me, not you, because my teachers were so old school. I mean, I did scales for a couple of years only in some of my voice lessons. I never
Mm.
sang music in my voice lessons. So, they couldn't deal with that now, and I wouldn't put that on them. However, we are entrusted with language. And I look to move away from just a sound. I want to find the sound through how you say the words on pitch. So then my my challenge sometimes is to talk about a verb. What are the action words? Uh,
Hmm.
have you ever looked up the word love? Have you ever looked up the word joy? Do you know where the comma and the period and the exclamation point are? Because I'll tell all of them, you don't know the song unless you know it like poetry. And we monologue a lot.
Oh, same.
We monologue a lot. It's language, it's words. A person years ago, Italo Tayo, even my teacher Lorenzo Malfatti, all those years ago, words are the most important thing. And then I call the beauty of the voice or whatever, that's the gravy on the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Um, there are many levels to this, and so I am constantly, I say I have over 30 students a week. Each one of them I have to approach differently in how I say the same thing,
Sure.
depending on what's going on in their lives, depending on how I think they can receive it. You and I, we're kind of like chameleons, if you will. And we're actors, let's face it,
Yeah.
and therapists. And for some of them, we're parents
Hmm.
or brother or sister. It's my role, your role is very daunting some days. I usually am up at 5:30 or 6 just to breathe and try to step into my day to help those people that I see on that day.
I mean, obviously, you use your life, right?
Mhm.
Your life experience uh, to the benefit of your students. Can you maybe give an example of how you've maybe shared an anecdote of your learning process of or struggle of yours in the
Mhm.
studio and how maybe that impacted a student?
Depending on the student, I will talk about my anger as a Black man in America
Mm,
and how I navigate not allowing that to consume me, whereby I forget that we are humans and we're all in this soup together. And
hmm.
so I have to separate things that may have happened to me when I was in the busing program in Iowa in those 60s and all of that, things that were said to me, how not to hate humans,
Mm,
as it were. But also being reality based is very important so that you can see a thing for what it is. I also understand that I'm not afraid of death, which then allows me, I feel, to speak to them in ways that I don't know how long my time is. So I better make the best use of it while I'm here
hmm.
for them and for me and for the globe. Um, I also will tell them that we, you, me, them, we're the doctors and the healers of the world through what we do. People come to us so we can express a feeling that they are afraid to express themselves.
100%. Yeah.
So they listen. I sometimes have to repeat these things 1,000 times, and we do scales and we do songs in the midst of it. So a lesson is not totally that.
Sure, it's not
Um,
just it's not a a philosophy class, right?
right.
But we talk a lot about philosophy, and you're talking about dissecting language, and
Hmm.
there's so much to a voice lesson that I think those who are not in the field would be maybe surprised at
Yes.
how much ground we're covering, right?
Well, and David, isn't it interesting? I don't know if you feel this way, but there are days where I question myself about what I'm doing
Oh,
and
100%.
what kind of impact is it having. Of course, then I have that one or two students, and when they tell me that I'm the best part of their week, okay, then I know that
Yeah.
I'm doing at least a little something right, just a little bit, you know?
Yesterday I was coaching some students, and there's just such a joy you get, right? It's such a
Hmm.
special kind of joy. It makes me emotional thinking of it. That you get from teaching, and when things are just really like you're on the same level, right? And you're really cooking with the student. And the student left the studio, and the next student came in, and they're like, "How are you today?" I'm like, "I'm great. I think I may try to do this teaching thing professionally." I think I may do this professionally because
Yeah.
I got it. Sometimes I think I really know what I may be doing. I know there's going to be a day, ask me tomorrow. I'm sure I'm going to be like, I don't know why I'm here.
Mhm.
What am I doing? but, to live in that duality and to wrestle with that. And I think to be honest with that, yeah, honest about that with students is such a gift because I know when I was in college, like I just figured my professors had everything figured out, and I just was like, I'd go to the studio and would be so lost and feel so like I
Mm.
don't like I'm not worthy of doing this because I don't have the answers. Well, guess what? you
Yeah.
know, guess what? None of us does, and we're kind
Right.
of trying to figure it out as we go.
Well, I'm not knowing where you went to school, but see, I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my teachers. So I was in a small community where if I was walking down the street in Indianola, Iowa, and who was the president then? Oh my gosh, Lou and I can't think of his name. It may come to me. But I'd walk by the president's home, which was this mansion type thing, and she'd say, "Oh, Anthony, I have some soup. Come on in and have lunch. You got a break?" So we just walk into the
Wow.
president's home and have lunch. Or my voice teachers, we I'd walk by their home, walking in that little town sometimes, and they would say, "Well, why don't you come by for dinner?" And then that way you don't have to eat at that cafeteria food, which wasn't bad at home, but it's cafeteria.
Sure.
And so I was extended the blessing of being able to know how my teachers lived
Hmm.
in their homes
Hmm.
and how they related to their families. And I shared with them as well. I don't know if that happens much, but if it does, I don't know how careful we have to be as teachers
Sure.
not to be
Boundary wise.
sued.
Yeah.
You know, So I wonder about that, but I can't. I'm who I am. So in the cafeteria up at Wagner, the students know they can come and sit and chat. Or I even sat outside the union one day. So one or two of my students came, and then others walked, and we just had this jam session.
Yeah.
So for me, that's education, and for me, that's part of technique. This thing called technique, that mysterious whatever technique is. And when they are singing and feel such joy in the studio, they start to laugh. For me, that is the inner child remembered and unleashed, who has no limits on their imagination. And I don't know, but we had those huge towels. We would run down this hill. Yes, I was Superman. Yes, I was watching uh, the Green Lantern, with Kato
Mm-hmm.
uh, and all of that. And even pretending we were driving the Black Beauty, that kind of thing. That imagination that doesn't limit you.
Yeah.
Now, our profession, yes, they say you have to be in this box, that box, not everybody, but what I'm trying to do is if they're in a box, at least see that you can open it and come out if you want to.
Yeah. I believe it's usually yearly you give a recital,
Yes.
um,
Mhm.
right? And um, can you talk to me about why you think it's important as a teacher to continue to stretch yourself, and what's challenging to you personally in that work?
Well, right now, the recital I'm planning for the spring is challenging because I haven't totally picked the music yet. Right? And
Heard.
I usually am at least almost a year in advance of that because I need time for that to seep into my brain.
Yeah.
Uh, and I am thematic. I have found that I am political and I am thematic. I didn't do a recital this past spring because all of the faculty, we did a joint recital and we did two numbers apiece. And I was just
Nice.
busy and I needed to step away from it for a year. I'm not doing that this year. And so I find that I like themes. I like to call things reflections, war and repentance. This year it will be a tribute to Bayard Rustin,
Mm,
who, as you may know, or the viewers who see this, he actually organized the March on Washington in 1963. And that came to me because I know his partner, who is still living. And so he said he will come. I need to get that date pinned down as soon as possible. Um, so the it is important because I'm always interested in, well, where am I at this stage of life now? Um, and it's important for the students to see that I am viable. I'm not dead. I still, I'm my voice is still very much with me. In fact, I think it's better than it ever was.
mm, that's
But
awesome.
that was my goal all those years ago, is to make sure that I sang as long as possible, which I think every singer should, but who knows, accident or illness or those things we can't plan on.
Sure.
Um, but it is now not just to sing because I sing, but it is now to sing what is my purpose, meaning what is my theme. What bugs me about everyday life at this point that I need to sing out so that I don't have too much stress on my heart and my mind.
Mm,
And right
yeah.
now, Bayard Rustin, we know him for the March on Washington. He was a glorious singer.
Oh, wow.
Glorious. From lute songs that he used to do in that classical way, and then work songs and Negro spirituals, which
Amazing.
nobody else is really going to do Negro spirituals if I don't do them. I have colleagues all over the country who are
Yeah.
promoting, but to get a non-person of color to sing a Negro spiritual, it's like pulling teeth sometimes.
I had Dr. Everett McCorvey
Oh, yes.
on program, and it was talking about Negro spirituals being folk songs, and
Yeah.
yes, there are some that are not appropriate for people of some backgrounds, but this is part of our history, and they should be sung ones that are appropriate, and so I'm glad that you're programming
Yeah.
that.
Well, and you see, I do it because the difference between the spirituals and the blues, as I'm sure you know and others, is that the spirituals were about the group experience and
Hmm.
blues are about the individual experience,
Yeah.
which is how all of that morphed, in ways. So, but yeah, and I've got a couple of big projects that I'm still working on trying to fundraise for, oh, if we everything would be great if we didn't have to think about money, wouldn't it?
Preach.
Oh, that green stuff. Ugh. And I only make it to give to somebody else anyway, so I don't worry about that even. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, so I hope that answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And where do you, if you feel comfortable sharing, where do you kind of rub up against discomfort as you stretch yourself as a performer, as a teaching artist?
Sometimes that has to do with a health issue,
Mm,
which then lends itself to immediacy and just how quick can a thing happen before something goes horribly wrong. I'm good right now, but like everybody, we do. I every now and again I have a little crick and a creak. I hear a sound that I didn't hear before if I move my foot. I'm afraid that if I pull something too far, it will stay pulled out of shape and won't snap back. you know, I keep up with my tennis. That is the glorious, that's why I'm as mobile as I am. Also, why I'm not as big as a house because I'm a good cook and I love to eat. So, um, hey, food are us. I was born with a fork in my hand, I'm sure. Um, so yeah, that's it. It has sometimes to do with understanding the different chapters in life. And I'm honest with myself, I'm in traditionally that last third of the life, which pleases me because I'm here.
Yes.
But it also means that I've been able, I feel, to recognize the BS quicker and get rid of it sooner. I have to carry around less Charmin these days. And so, and so,
Ah,
David, and I'm not talking about for me, I'm talking about handing it to somebody else. Here, you need this because I
right.
ain't got time for that. So, it's, well, you know,
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Just my own personal, as I shared at the beginning of this episode, I'm preparing for a recording of my art songs
mm,
that I'm doing in October, November, and rehearsing some of my own music.
mhm,
Presents some challenges, and I find myself um, hearing those old voices. Like,
mm,
oh, you can't do that. Like you need to da, 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 da. I'm like, not the truth.
yeah,
That is not the truth, right? And so like I bring this into lessons and talk to students about it because I think
mhm,
it's so important that they know because I think it's a very common thing. We all have these narratives that
mhm,
can kind of rear their ugly heads, and I think the more that we can talk to students about that, so they know they're not you know alone in that, I
mhm,
think
mhm.
it's really beneficial, right?
Well, I wanted to, mention that in my voice studio, I have photos of my teachers. Those
Mm.
that are dead are on the wall. Those that are living, there are two that I have them in a frame because it's an old adage at home that if you put a portrait of somebody living on the wall and it falls, that's a bad omen.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so how you talked about those voices, I find that so interesting. It's at what voices are we listening to? So, my pictures around the room are who I thank daily. And so those voices, because I do believe that we can, which it's not always easy. I'm saying it like it's the easiest thing, but we can foster how our brain is rewired.
100% we
So
can.
then, what voices do I want to have in my memory that will speak to me?
Yeah.
Um, because most students say, they'll all tell me, oh, we'll be in touch, we'll let you know how we're doing. I said, mm-hmm. I'm the only person I know that kept in touch with all of my teachers until their dying days. However, I'm kind of, is that sentimental? What do you call that? Nostalgic? I don't know. That's just who I am. That's how I'm made.
Hmm. Sure.
I tell them if you do, great. If you don't, that's okay. Pass along a word or two that you might remember, but know that I release you because I need to make room for somebody else. I've given you
Right.
what I can give you. You go out into that world and you try to make it better than what I did.
what are you curious about
Oh Lord.
as a performer, as
Yeah.
a voice pedagogue, what or both, or what's on your list of things that you're curious about?
I am curious about a couple of things. Why students don't read,
Mm,
and I'm curious about why some have the inability to hear melody. Now I'm going to talk about you for a moment. I put you, Frank Wildhorn, Jason Robert Brown, Adam Gettle. See, you know how a voice works well because you know how to structure the words with your melody, since I've heard some of your songs.
thank you.
And so that every composer doesn't have that gift, but not every singer knows how to recognize it in a composer. But I'm telling you, brother man, you know how to take text and set it so it vocalizes and a singer wants to sing it.
Thank
So
you.
that be that as it may, I'm wondering if when I play a melody and people learn it, if I take it up a step, they can't sing it because they can't make
Mm,
that adjustment. I'm finding that a lot, at least with some of the people I work with.
sure, sure.
And if I play da 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 da, a scale like that, but if I play an octave up, how it's they overshoot it because they can't hear the low and the high, but coming
Mm,
down is always not a problem. That's not a problem. So I have been thinking about this for years, and my coach and I talked about we're going to write a book about this. Because, David, don't you think, or at least I do, a lot of technique is how you hear. If you can't hear
sure.
where something might be going, you'll never know what the path is. It's like me driving from here back to Iowa. If I don't see the road, I don't know where to go.
Right.
So that's what I'm curious about. What has happened to hearing? Um, And I've seen studies done where they think most of this generation is going to lose a lot of their hearing by the age of 40 because of, being plugged in all the time and tuned out. Not you. I mean, this is, but that's what I'm curious about. Now, I'm wondering if all of the AirPods and that kind of thing, if it has kind of lessened how we can hear the real human voice
Mm,
and understand the facets and the colors in the voice, because then I'm
the
talking about,
depth.
yes, and the truth and the honesty and how you feel those words come across your lips. And so I talk about colors if it's a character, if it's Francesca in Bridges of Madison County, or Robert in Bridges of Madison County, or if it's Leo Frank in Parade, then I'm talking about the colors that emanate from the voice because of the situation they're in. But if you don't really hear a spoken voice, that can be a bit of a challenge. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about how people hear, how people
Hmm.
listen, and then the third thing, which I think we talked about before we even got on the air, is reading.
Yeah.
And a lot of students they don't have to. And let's face it, higher ed across the country, they can some places they can only assign so much reading because students won't do it. Um, But when it comes to a play, then I say, well, what can I do to try to make this a reality in vocal terms? So then I just say, you were just in this play? Oh, so you read the words? Oh, you have this piece of music? Oh, you don't read the words?
Yeah.
Even before you learn the music. Now you and I'm sure you grew up playing an instrument. So did I. So there have been several people that I've been able to push towards an instrument, as well, piano in particular. But I'm curious, reading, um, hearing, and knowing what's going on in the world, those three things.
Yeah.
How can we sing about worldly things if we don't read about them, if we don't think about them? I understand news is horrible. There are some good things somewhere on the news, but
Yes.
I see it every
I
now and
look
again
for it
when
every day.
yeah,
Right.
when a cat's been rescued, or
Right.
uh,
Right.
I'm thinking about years ago when the little girl fell down in the well and they found her and could bring her up. She was had all kinds of mud and guck on her. That was a clapping moment.
Oh,
But yeah, those things, the reading, the hearing, and what else did I just say? The reading, the hearing, and no knowledge of the world.
yeah.
And I'm reality based, I think. And we cannot serve our community. And I'm curious about this self-importance. Now, you have to have an ego. Yes, I have an ego. I know you have one too, but yours is healthy. So,
Thank you. I
in case,
try.
in case you wanted to know, there's healthy. But the thing is, this is not about us.
It's never about us.
It's not about us.
No.
Um, and so, to think that you're going to graduate from college and be discovered. Mm-hmm. I want to know if you're going to discover how you're going to eat and pay Con Ed and Spectrum. That's what you
Yeah.
need to discover.
Or are you committed to this just because you want to be discovered, or are you committed to this because it is fulfilling and you feel it is deeply necessary in our culture, in our
Amen.
society, right?
Yeah, we ought to put you in church. Amen. Can I get a hallelujah on that? Yes.
Hallelujah.
Uh,
Indeed.
Well, and
Yeah.
David, I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but don't you find that for me, church was everything, and I heard all these harmonies. If there were 100 people in my sanctuary, everybody had a different part.
Yep.
Just heard how melodies and things go together. That goes back to the point of hearing. And it's not that you have to be in church to understand how to hear. It's just that's where it started for me.
Sure. Same.
Um, But that has changed. That has morphed over the years too, where I might know the Lord's Prayer and knew I could make money with it at a funeral or something like that. That's not necessarily the way things go anymore in a big scale.
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
I'm not
So
saying
true.
it's bad. None of this is bad. I always feel like I have to meet the society where it is and see how I can bridge gaps and overlap. Mm?
So, just as we're coming to the end of our time, I wanted to ask, we're men of a certain age,
Yes.
and I'm wondering, um, you've hinted at this, I think, in a couple places in our time together, but can you talk to me about what you would like your legacy to be as a teaching artist when you retire?
I may I address retirement?
Yeah.
If for us, David, is there such a thing?
I hope not. I hope I hope that retirement for me looks like I may not be at a university
Mhm.
3 or 4 or 5 times a week, but that I'm still teaching. I'm invited to you know to fly to Paris and give a master class, or to
Mhm.
I my idea of a happy life is dying at the piano.
Yeah. Well, so
Honestly,
I'm going to start there before I get
yeah.
to legacy. I look at retirement and death as my transition to become part of the energy of the whole.
Mm,
And I look at my legacy, such as it is that if one of these students remembers anything that I said, which I didn't come up with myself, it came from a teacher that came from a teacher that came from a teacher.
yeah.
That's the legacy. Because let's face it, in the real world, when you see these stars at the Grammys, at the Tonys, at what else is uh, the BET awards, the whatever awards. How many times do you hear anybody thank a teacher?
It's
So,
rare.
so our legacy is left in other ways.
Yes.
And I have enough people that repeat phrases that I've said to them that I feel that's how I'm going to live in the memories of those yet to come who will have never met me.
Yeah.
Because all this sheet music, this room is full of stuff. I have scores, I have books. Nobody's interested in that. And I got over the idea of thinking that someone would be. Maybe if I was famous, I know a couple of very famous opera singers and that kind of thing. Their library will be important to somebody. Mine will not. It's important to me. So I need to do with it the best I can.
Yeah.
Um, so then what is legacy? Is it material things or is it spiritual things? I would like for a brief moment my legacy to be when somebody takes a breath that they remember me. And I think that may happen. I think it may. I hope it does.
I'm really touched by that. That's beautiful.
Well, we're in a deep thing, you and I, and I'm very glad I'm not alone. Um, I know I'm not alone. Mm. This way, I'd like to think that what we're talking about is not lost on our art. There are days that I feel it is. Uh, I think some of the younger people coming along they're they're really in this thing, but they're not really in this thing. They're not really in this thing. And
Yeah.
for me, my students will tell you, this is the mama place. This is the mama place. And it's bringing the imagination of the mama place together that can free up the voice and keep things open and keep things clear. Um, but I'm grateful for my teachers. I'm grateful for my mother. I have a little snapshot of her up there with my teachers as well.
Mm.
Because that's where it started. I didn't birth myself. Like what is that? That Botticelli, The Birth of Venus. I didn't
Yes,
jump out
exactly.
of a clamshell. So although that sounds pretty exciting, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that legacy.
Yeah.
It's the legacy. Um, I couldn't be happier. I sit in front of a tree most mornings up there on campus because energy, the trees. Have you seen the redwoods?
Yes.
Oh, please. You know
Yes.
what I'm talking about.
I do.
And so my legacy, I'd be just fine if, and I'm going to say a personal thing. So I am going to be a living urn when I transition. And
Mm.
so for me to be planted someplace and to grow as a tree and to give oxygen back to the planet and, hopefully not be cut down anytime soon so I can grow, at least be big enough so, you know, you're gonna either scream or hate me, but be big enough so that a dog takes interest in me. You know? Well, now, who else has said stuff like this on your podcast?
You are a unique and beautiful soul. That's
Mhm.
exactly why I called you. I thank you so much for this time. I'm so
Thank
grateful
you.
to Anthony and just for sharing your wisdom and your kindness and with us. Just very, very grateful to you.
Well, and I'm glad to see you. I mean, do you ever have time for coffee? You are so incredibly busy.
I do have time for coffee for you, absolutely, and we
Okay,
will.
that's why I asked because now it's in print or
I'm going
now
to
it's
keep
on
this in the
podcast.
podcast. It is going to stay in the podcast. So when we sign off, I'm going to pick up my phone and we're going to find a time. Okay.
You got it, brother man.
Thank you, my
Peace,
friend.
love, and joy, David Sisco. Thank you.
God bless. What a great conversation. And I hope this got you thinking, because I would love to know, how do you define the term teaching artist? Is it different from what we shared today? How are you keeping active in your own study, both for your personal enjoyment and fulfillment and to the benefit of your students? Is this through performance or study or both? Are there things that you find yourself reticent to explore, and why might that be? Sound off. You can email me at wholeheartedvoicepedagogy@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on the socials. My handles on most platforms are at Sisco Songs or at Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. Also, I hope you'll consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're coming to the end of the first season, which is kind of crazy to believe, but I have some big plans for season 2, which will start in January, and I really want you to be a part of that. More soon. Take care of you.